one of the first things I found about him were these objects he had when he was murdered. He was shot on the head, so most of these objects were covered in all blood. I found documents about his murder trial. My name is Paola Jimenez Quispe. I'm a photographer based in Lima, Peru. About the series, Rules for Fighting, it's about my father. My family was like a really normal family. We lived our lives in Lima, but my father was killed in 1998. I was 5 years old, so I wasn't allowed to know much about it. That's how I grew up, with this big hole in my memory that in different forms it defined my identity. That's why I decided to dig in the subject and make all of this. The title is taken off a notebook my father wrote when he and my mother got married. So my father wrote in this notebook about relationships, marriage, love, family. In one page it said communication, rules for fight. It was about rules you have to have with your partner when you get in an argument. That's how I decided to take that as a title. I thought it was like a really clever and nice way to intertwine my father and myself. First, I studied in my family house. There was like lots of evidence about my father, like family albums, objects when he was murdered, clothes, and developed film rolls that I found. So for me, it was like a little museum that I found lots of stuff. So one of the first things I found about him were these objects he had when he was murdered. He was shot on the head, so most of these objects were covered in all blood. I found documents about his murder trial. I went to the places the police said his car was moving on the day of the assassination. I traveled to Cusco to visit my mother and father's birthplaces. I basically made pictures about everything and everywhere I went during this process. My father gave a big amount of money to one of his friends to invest in another business, but months passed and the friend didn't know what to say about the money. He didn't want to talk about it. My father and uncles, they demanded like tons of millions to talk about the investment they were making, but this man, he didn't want to. He was nowhere to be found until when this man asked for a meeting with them. My uncle and father were going to go together, but finally my uncle left and my father was going alone. He was the last person who saw him alive. He claimed that this didn't happen because my father never arrived at the meeting, so it was really suspicious. And another thing that was really suspicious was that he didn't went to the funeral, which was weird, as they were good friends and business partners. The court decided that the murder was him, and he was then convicted for 15 years in prison, but he only stayed for 7 or 8. This picture is my hand, like the shadow of my hand in a wall of my house. My house is like a really important piece of place of my work, because here it has happened like a lot of things, like my father being killed, not in my house, but like his loss, we spent it here, we didn't move. So I think that this picture is about like me trying to reach all of this, like this light or maybe this shadow that my father left in my house and in my family. It's like a symbol for me. My father took this picture, actually. On the left, we have a picture of me waving at the camera. It was like the last year we spent together. This is really special for me because on the right, we have like this document, which is all covered up. Like we only have some words left. I did this like on purpose because I wanted to create these sentences like which express my feelings or thoughts about his murder or him missing in my life. So actually, when you put together all these words, it says, where did he go? So I think that these two put together are really special because in the picture, it's like me waving at him, but in the next page, it's like me questioning myself, where did he go? So that's why I put this together. So this picture, we can see my father, and this is a picture I found in these undeveloped film rolls. In most of those pictures, my father didn't appear, so this is one of them. I get this feeling that he's like saying something to me because he's looking straight to the camera. So maybe I wanted to create this dialogue between him and me. So yeah, that's why I chose it. I started talking about how difficult it was for me to face all this information, and that in some way I was fighting myself to confront all of it. That's why I thought it was clever and nice way to intertwine my father and myself.